All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. G Alpha Palmer here once again. And we're going to get right into it because we're running a little bit behind tonight. But I want to be, before I get started, I want to ask you to, if you would be so kind to like, to share, and to hit the notification bell so that we can let you know again and again. It's the Red Hot Mike, and I am your host, G Alpha Palmer, and I have my host here, Mr. Headley Lamar, who holds my hat for me before every one of our sessions because I am not only known as, but I'm also known as the Cat in the Hat. And I got on my Easter colors, so happy Easter to each and every one of you out there. And we are excited about tonight's program because it's going to hit something that I think that is very, very, very important. And so, yes, the Red Hot Mike, and I am your host. And this toast is to you, to all that you are and all that you shall be. Pomegranate juice. Come on. It's a new day. It's a new opportunity to experience the best of us that's in us. All right. I'm excited. So let's get to it. Let's get to it. Yes. All right. We're here once again. Let's get rid of some of the lights because we're going to get straight into it tonight. I'm excited about this particular session that we're going to have tonight because I think it's very, very poignant with what's going on. You know, we see things that are happening to people in the media, celebrities and such. And what happens with us is that we get defocused off of what is really important and we focus on what's not. And we have a tendency to focus on the celebrity. We have a tendency to focus on the celebrity and not on something that's much more important, and that is the process. The process. And so what I want to do is have us to focus in tonight on the process. On the process. Now, why? Why do we want to focus in? Well, we want to focus in on the process because the process is very important. Very important that we understand that the process is what we all can learn from as opposed to just looking at a person and beginning to have some idea or an opinion about what they're going through. But it's important that you and I understand that what they're going through is not just for them, but it's for us. And so we have to begin to look at some things as to how and why those things can happen. And then okay, I don't like having my tie crooked. So here we go. Now, recently, matter of fact, it was, we talked about and have been talking about Will Smith, Chris Rock, and Jada Pinkett Smith. But I'm going to change and I'm going to move to that I just became aware of through the news and other content creators. The situation with Kirk and Kerrion Franklin. Now, last year I talked about this very subject. If you go into my broadcast, you'll the relationship between a father and son. And just I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. I think it was Sunday that Kerrion, or earlier in the week, Kerrion was arrested. Now, Kerrion is Kirk Franklin's oldest son by a prior relationship to his marriage. It is his oldest child. They have been having some really knockdown, drag them out negative relationship dynamics for a long, long time, and a lot is directed that Kirk Franklin hasn't been the father uh, that he could have been. This is what some are saying, and then there's some saying that Kerrion has just gone down the wrong path. He's now starring in, I believe, was starring in a LBGTQ series called, I think it's called Bad Boys, and his whole he's come out as being bisexual, and that's his choice. Everyone has choices. Always comes consequences, regardless. And I'm not saying that the thing that I'm getting ready to talk about is a result of Kerrion's choices. I'm just saying I think that choices have a lot to do with the direction that we go, without shadow of a doubt. Okay, so Kerrion has been arrested because he's been driving a car of a woman who's now missing and presumed dead. And he was caught with a gun in the car. So he's been apprehended, and he says that uh, he doesn't know the woman, but that he had bought the car from the woman. So I don't know. We don't. I'm not here to judge any of that, but this is what I want to talk about. This is the avenue in which I want to go into, and that is the importance that and a son needs his father. Now, to this point, Kirk Franklin has not made into this recording, at least to my knowledge. And I want to talk about the fact that I don't want to focus in on the specifics of this particular situation. I want to speak, let me get rid of the phone here. I want to speak to the idea that it speaks to the whole idea of a father and a son, a father and a son. Now, I'm going to preface everything I say by this. A father cannot be a father to a son if a son won't allow a father to be. He can't. Son will not allow his father to be the father. Then the father cannot be the father. But if the son is looking for and wants his father to be the father, then I believe there's some things that the father can do. Now, in this particular situation, I believe that one of the things that I very important is the stages of development. Now, I've talked about the stages of development for a long time, and I'm going to continue to talk about it because I think it's very, very important. Now, the stages of development that we've talked about are boy or childhood, adolescence or malehood, or manhood. Those are the three stages in which every boy goes through: boy, male, man, boy, male, man. And under those three stages are eight, and I repeat, eight sub that has to be developed. And these elements are elements of development within the stages. And in those eight elements, there's chronology, there's physiology, there's cognition or cognitive, there's mental, emotional, philosophic, psychological, and intellectual. Now, all of these areas have to be built up in an individual. Now, what you've got to understand is the hardware for these come with us when we're born. It's a part of our design. But yet, parents who are the software developers for uploading and help developing the child, or in this case, the son, in as they grow through the stages of development. Now, I am not criticizing anyone. All I'm saying is because crossed every T, you haven't dotted every I and crossed every T. But the bottom line is we don't just not speak it and say that, oh, that's their business. It has nothing to do with, oh, this is the Franklin's business. I have nothing to do with it. I don't have any opinion. Yes, we have to have an opinion. And that opinion is important to our, opinion is important to our having a relationship and a developmental relationship, not only for ourselves, but those that are in our community, culture, and clan. So it's important. So I'm going to be talking about the stages of development. I'm going to some father role responsibilities, and I'm going to talk about how certain aspects of the 8 elements play a critical role in that particular phase. Now, it's important that we understand again that I am not one. My goal is for us to grow as a community, to grow as humanity. Humanity is the community. And if we are to grow, we have to look at what's going on around us and ascertain how I can learn from that. Now, again, I'm not, we can learn from each other. We are our brother's keeper. We are to learn one from another. Okay, so here it is. Now, when we start talking about development, now there's some key ages that I think, one of the important things that we have in life, it is our most valued commodity is our time. Time is valuable because we never get it back. We can get any and everything else back, but we never get time back. And so time is very, very important. So let's look at a child. Let's look at a son. Let's look at a son that is born from the ages of 1, or I should say from 0 to 1. The father's role is to model. He becomes a model for the son. How? Basically, because that's all the son can really, really identify with. And that is because they have the same equipment. The son recognizes that the father and he has the same equipment, and that equipment is a physiological, from a physiological perspective. So the son begins to identify the father because of the physiological element, because they both have the same equipment, the same design, if you would. And because of that, the son begins to observe, to model that particular behavior. And it becomes important that a father understands that he is modeling for his son. Now, if you're doing some behaviors that you don't want your son to pick up, believe me, he will pick them up, because he doesn't go by what you say, he goes by what you do. Observational learner. He can't language that well yet, but he can understand and attach ideas and thoughts and paradigms to what he sees you do. So if you're hitting his mother, if you're yelling and screaming, okay, if you're drinking or smoking, if you're doing what doing around him, he will eventually pick up. Now, in the same perspective, the mother during this time is very nurturing and very securing and very supportive. She's just come from, and not only that, but she is very incubative. She's incubated this seed, and now it is time for her to begin to let go and to change that relationship, so that she and he can matriculate to another relationship that I'm going to talk about later in another broadcast. Not going to do that today. But on this relationship between the father and the son. Now, it's important to understand that when the son is born, at this between the ages of 0 and 1, the thing that becomes important is that he's becoming he identifies as an individual. How much he was connected to his mother, and he heard mother's voice, mother fed him and everything, nurtured him, talked to him and everything. And now things have changed. He's now been birthed, and now he's beginning to understand and become self-aware that he's an inward from his, and with that comes a sense of autonomy as being an individual. And being an individual, that can be kind of fearful. That can be kind of scary, because he was so used to being in an environment that was very safe and secure and warm. A world that's different. It's cold out here, isn't it? It's cold, especially when he was born. That's why he cried. He's like, "Whoa, it's cold out here." I'm used to it being warm, but with him being born into this world, he also has this reality, and he becomes self-aware that he is separate from his mother and not joined to his mother. So it's important that he understands, and he understands that he's an individual. And another thing that becomes an issue for him is the issue of trust and distrust. He before who he can trust and who he can't trust. But he knows through relationship and through the sound of her voice that he can trust mom, because mom has taken care of him and provided for him all to this point. But we've got to understand that he's now separated from mom, and he's something that he can trust and find, and other things that he can trust. And so he begins to look toward his father, who has the same design, and he looks to see if he can trust him. And fathers, you've got to understand, your son, you may not think that you in this perspective, and you may not think that he understands some things, but you need to understand this: the Creator gave him some hardware that you don't even have any inkling of an idea of. This child of yours is brighter than you think, more intelligent than you think, and able to synthesize information better than you think he can. But he can see, he synthesizes this information based on what he sees, because he doesn't understand language yet. I shared that with you already. So this age is very, very important to him, because it's his first relationship outside the womb. And so the role you play, fathers, is very, very important. Now, we can look at Kirk Franklin, and if from what I'm understanding, he wasn't his son's life. I'm not sure. I can't speak totally to that. But from what I understand, he's not been very active in his child's life, at least according to Kerrion. Because once he got married, his attention went to his wife and his children. And so that dynamics that came into play, where their relationship was affected because he didn't have a good relationship with Kirk's wife, and so all these things happen in life. Relationships don't work. Some relationships should never have been, right? Some relationships should have never been. They were, and so because they were, we have to deal with the dynamics that come and the consequences that come as a result. I don't want to focus on Kirk Franklin because I'm not. My goal is not to belittle or to belittle him or Kerrion or his family. I'm a fan of Kirk Franklin, and I'm not here to do that. I want to focus on the dynamics of development. Okay, so here we go. Now, we talked about him being the son being from ages 0 or birth to 1 year old. Very, very important. The father, because he is the epitome of design for the child, and he does what the father does. He imitates what the father does. Now, from the ages of 2 to 4. Now, when we start looking at these years, we're talking about the formative years. These are the most critical years. From 1 to 5. 1 to 5 is the formative years, and in the formative years, the father's role is molding. First, it's modeling. Now it's molding. He molds his son. Why? Why is he molding his son? Well, because now his son and help to mold the way he thinks, which is cognitive. Or psychological. He has to help mold his cognitions, and that's his paradigms, and also his mentality. So these particular areas in promoting how his son thinks, how his son communicates, how his son sees the world, and how he acts in the world, how he interprets the world. Okay, and it becomes the father's role to say, son, this, boys do that. Well, how can he say that? Well, because I've been a boy, and I understand how a boy is to operate. So here's the psychology of a boy. Here's the mentality of a boy. A boy thinks this way. Okay. And so as a father, we help him to think this is what boys like. See, we're helping him. See, because a parent is he's molding him. You discipline, you disciple, right? Grow. Some people say, well, you don't do this. You let a child be a child. No, you don't. A child cannot be a child. He's not here to be a child. He's here to be shaped and formed to be an adult. And the only way that happens is through the first teachers, which are you have a responsibility to show your sons how to be boys. That's right. It's your responsibility to show your son how to be a boy. And if he's not being a boy, it's because you have not done your due diligence. Some will say, well, he should be able to do this, that. No. If your son wanted to go play out in traffic on an interstate highway, would you let him? No, you wouldn't. Interest of his son. Why? Because you know that playing in traffic is dangerous. So you don't want your son to play in traffic. So you would say, son, boys don't play in traffic. Because here's why. Reason why you don't play in traffic. And that goes with every other area of life. Boys don't play with that. Boys don't do that. Boys don't wear that. He has to be taught. He has to be discipled. And it's the father's responsibility. No one can do it better than you. His stepdaddy can't do it. No, he can't. It has to be the one who gave birth, who is his biological father. I'm not saying that stepfathers are bad. I'm not saying that at all. There are great stepfathers out there that have done great jobs, but a stepfather is still a stepfather. Some would say, well, a father, if he's not taking care of his children, he's not a father. Well, he may not be a father, because father has to do with biological, nothing else, not materialistic, none of the other things, but biological. Now, as a biological father, there are some responsibilities that go with that. There are some responsibilities that go with that. So we're talking about molding your son. And it's important to understand that your son is in early boyhood or early childhood. And in early childhood, he's very, very impressionable. And being that he's very impressionable, remember, I don't know about you, but I remember the terrible twos. I remember the terrible twos, and the terrible twos is here's your son. What's happening with your son during the terrible twos? He's beginning to learn and to begin to embrace his independence, that your child will run away from you. You have to go running after them. You bring them back. They run over. They're testing the world. They're testing, and they're beginning to become more involved in their environment. They're becoming more used to their environment and to exchange with their environment. So it's important that you allow that. You can stand back and walk and go with them and ensure that they don't hurt themselves, but to allow them to experience. The world is they're not to be afraid of, but with our children. We have the idea that the world is not safe. And because of that, we have to run and rescue them. When you do that, your child will always have the idea that you are going to rescue them. No matter what happens, what you have to do as a parent is allow them to fall. If they fall down, right? As long as there's not something that's going to endanger their lives. Sure, they might get some bumps and bruises, some busted lips and everything else like that, or bump their head. But the the bottom line is children to experience their environment. If you do not, they will be afraid of their environment. And once they're afraid of their environment, they will do things that will allow them to operate in most cases. The way that they begin to operate in an environment is dysfunctional. They use dysfunctional means to compensate being afraid to operate in this scary world. But we've got to, as parents, allow them to know that this world is not scary. There's nothing to be afraid of for whatever comes your way. That's important. Your child, so that your child doesn't have a spirit of fear, but that they have an idea that I can do this. They have an idea of power, love, and sound-mindedness. But if you don't raise them that way, if you raise them afraid of everything, they will be afraid of everything. Now, it's important that a father understands this. And you model him, I should say. You mold him to be a child that's not afraid. You mold him to have the proper cognitions. You mold him to have the right psychological perspective, and you mold him with the right mentality. It's your, okay? So that's molding, we talked about modeling, molding. Now, here's a very important step. The stage between ages 5 and 12. Your son between ages 5 and 12, the most critical. I know 1 to 5 is the formative years, but the 5 to 12 is the most critical because it is there that the transition takes place. Eventually, transitions take place that for your son. It's important that you understand that now you are to be his mentor. We first be model, then we mold, now we mentor. We mentor him. What is a mentor? A mentor is someone that's there to show the right way through behavior, through your actions, because now he's able to put together the cognitions, the mentality, and he's able to put together the psychological aspects and correlate them with. He's able to do this now. And so now it begins to be the key aspect for him is intellectual, the intellectual element of development. So the intellectual development is that he begins to put together the psychological, the mental, and he uses the intellectual and is another important piece that he also becomes active in is the physiological. Now, again, the physiological is important because what happens in this phase is his body between 5 and 12, depending, it may be a little later, but for some, between these ages, he begins to learn some things. He begins to change. His body changes. His emotions change. See, and that's another aspect that has, in as far as an element that has to be considered. Element, the emotional element. His emotions begin to change. He begins to become very emotional. His emotions change very quickly because he doesn't understand emotions. So fathers, it's important for you to understand his emotions. Here's where it becomes very important. What happens in single family homes, especially when there's a mother and no father, at this particular age between 5 to 12, what happens is he begins to change. He begins to change his body when some things begin to happen emotionally. And so what happens is he begins to what's perceived as being rebellious, when in all actuality he's not being rebellious. What he is really doing is he's he's come to understand. And what boys do in this particular age, they begin to learn the importance of strength. They begin to learn the importance of force. They begin to learn the importance of control. And another thing becomes winning and losing. Winning and losing. And that will always follow a boy, a male, and a man. He wants to win. And that winning and losing is between the ages of 5 and 12. He learns this winning and losing, and he wants to win in everything he does. And it's looked at as seeing he wants to have his own way. He's stubborn. He's rebellious. No, he wants to win. And he should win. It is not wrong that he wants to win. And so you should encourage him to win. Now, there's a way to go about winning, but he needs to be encouraged to win. Son, you are a winner. You did that excellent. That was outstanding. How you did that. You have to do that. Encourage the winning. Encourage the winning. Okay. And then what we're doing in our society now, where we used to, and it's the trophy. And so the idea of winning and losing this is a masculine concept. Winning and losing is a masculine concept. Oh, and so mothers, he might get hurt. He might get hurt, but he will not learn some things. Winning and losing is important, because winning and losing not only goes from ages 5 to 12, it goes to the rest of his life. The importance of winning and losing. But in a single family home, it's rebellion, disobedience, and him challenging my authority. And so you put down that, and you smother it, and you destroy it, because you don't understand what's developmentally happening with him. No, our sons become less motivated. They become less focused on winning, and they don't want to strive because everybody gets a trophy. So why even try to do your best? It doesn't matter. You're going to get a trophy anyway. No. That's not. A boy has to understand the importance of winning and understanding the difference between winning and losing. And if you lose, you go back to the drawing board, you work harder, you do what you have to do, and come back to the field again, whatever it is, and you do better. That's how we learn. That's how our sons learn. That's masculine learning. And if you're not masculine, you won't understand that. You'll come against that. But it's not for you to understand. It's not your energy. If you're feminine, that's not your energy. The masculine energy brings that, the idea, the mentality of winning and losing, the cognition of what it takes, doing what it takes to win. Oh my goodness. Important stage and phase of development for our sons. And if the father's not there, and not able to show his son these important and critical steps, can you be for the son? How confusing that can be, how defeating that can be. He doesn't know where to go. He's around women 24/7, putting down men, not women, females. He's around 5 males that they've been in a relationship with, and they put them down in the presence of the son, who has the same equipment, who has the same design, and so he's confused. So he finds out that it's better to act like his mom than it is his father. To the point that he even detests his own design, to the point that he wants to change it. Oh my goodness. You don't hear me. You don't hear me. You don't hear me. Yes. Yes. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is good stuff. This is good. We talked about from 0 to 1, modeling. From 2 to 4, molding. From 5 to 12, mentoring. Now he gets to the age between 13 and 18. Between the ages of 13 and 18, what it becomes important idea of dominance. He understands dominance. He learns it through sports, how to dominate. He learns how to use his physicality, which now has become even more pronounced. And so now he learned to dominate. He's learned it through sports, to enforcing his will on another man or another boy. He's learned his how violence and how force and force equals violence and violence equals force. And then if we use power plus control as strength, and that power and that control enables us to win. Right? So he begins to use power, strength, and he begins to exercise dominance. And then because of that, he finds that even more so, violence works. That's important. That's important that we understand. The son begins to think that violence works, and that's when we find that children have their fathers in their lives to know to understand proper use of violence. Violence is a part of the male experience, and it's a part, and it is to be a part of his experience, but it's to be rightfully used, not inappropriately used. Father to show him how, not his mother. His mother will not be able to show him the right way to use violence because she is not created to invoke violence. That's not her create. That is operating in masculine traits. Traits are things that are learned through observation and behavior and practicing those behaviors. But it's not something that's innately born in you. See, but in a boy, these kinds of things are innately born. But what they have to be done is uploaded and taught in the software by his father, so that he can better understand how to use the hard drive. Okay. So now, this particular phase between 13 and 18, the father's responsibility is to manage. First, it was modeling. Then it was molding, managing. He manages his son. How is he managing? He manages him by understanding and focusing on his psychological development, managing his physiological development stronger, and he needs to learn how cognitive, psychologically, how to understand how to use that physicality that he now is experiencing, the rights and the wrong ways of, and how to think about using the psychology of in this phase of his life. He needs his father. It's in this place that sometimes he's seen in school as a nonconformist, because now he begins to challenge what's perceived as challenging authority, when in all actuality stretching himself, and he's stretching to the boundaries of understanding what is legitimate and what's illegitimate, what is right and what is wrong, what is fair, because that becomes a very important phase. That's not fair. He'll tell you that's not fair. What you did, that's not fair. And that's because he begins to look at the world in a way that he's looking for fairness, he's looking for righteousness, he's looking for that which is not so much that conforms to standards, but conforms to what he sees as being right. As right. See, he's not looking for what's good, he's looking for what's right. See, there's a difference between what's right and what's good, because something that's good isn't always right, but something that's right is always good. So it's always good and that is right. So the father begins to manage him. He's managing these behaviors. He's managing the son how to operate with this new physicality that he has. A mother can't do it. She doesn't have it. But now the son is bigger than she is. Whereas when he was 10 years old or younger, and she could give him a look, right? Or say something that would bring him to tears and make him do, or now that doesn't do it. Because he's bigger than her. Those hits don't hurt. And to the point that she knows it too. She knows it because he needs his father. With a son and a father, there always is the threat of violence. That is important. That a son always know that there's a threat of violence between him and his father. Mothers don't like that idea. But if you look at it in the wild, animals have that same characteristic. The father and son have an element of violence between them that keeps the son in check. Without your boyfriend, he doesn't have that. Your son will challenge that violence with your boo, with your boyfriend. He will not challenge the violence with his father because he respects his father, because his father has been there and is done for him. Of respect comes an element of fear and awe. He doesn't have that for your boo and your boyfriend. Hello, somebody. I know it's right. He needs his father. He needs his father. Without so here so far we've looked at molding. Excuse me. We looked at modeling, molding, mentoring, and managing. A father has to manage his son to help him get on, because he's 13, 18. So you got to back off. You're not going to be able to dictate to him. You have to manage him so that when he calls you on the phone and he asks your opinion about some things, you can help manage him. And you can manage him as he prepares to go out on his own. And so someone that he can turn to. He has a manager. Okay? He has a father, not, and I'm not talking just a heavenly father. I'm talking about a biological father that he can go to and get wisdom from, because that same wisdom was the same wisdom that got him to this point in life, because it was there from day one. Day one when he was modeling. Day one when he was modeling, to the day that he was molding, to the day that he was mentoring, to the day that he is now managing. It's important that a son have his father. If the son is open to the relationship with his father, you can't force it, gentlemen. You can't force it. If he doesn't want to be around you, if he doesn't want to find someone else's, sow into someone other young man's life. What you do for another young man, someone will do for yours. It's the law of reciprocity. What you sow, you reap. So if your son doesn't want to, sow into someone else's son as best you can. Mentor. Okay? As you're not his father, and never take the responsibility of being his father, because he's not your son. But you can help him. You can help him. right? But you have to understand the modeling, the molding, the mentoring, the managing, and the last phase. The last phase, in the ages of 19 to 25. 19 to 25. Now, in this particular phase of development, all 8 elements, I should say, in this stage of development, all 8 elements coming to talked about them at the beginning of the program. But in this particular phase, the father motivates. He motivates his son using the skills that he's taught him over the course of his first 20, 25 years, through the lessons learned, through the examples that they've experienced together. And he motivates his son. He doesn't tell his son what to do. He just motivates him to do what's right, not what's good, but what's right. Because in this particular, the son becomes more accustomed to he's very competitive, right? Very competitive about everything. Women, work, wages, everything. He's competitive about everything, and that competitiveness can be positive, but it can also have a negative effect in some situations. And so it becomes very important for the father to be he become a motivator, and motivating him the things that's needful to be done. Wow. Again, I want to ask you, please like, subscribe, and share what we're talking about here on the radio. It's important that people understand what's going on. What's going on? Your son needs you, sir. Son, you need your father. Whatever's happened, you need to push that to the side, and you need to go and see your father. Go and see your father. Go and see your father. You need him in your life. And if someone tells you that you don't, that's someone that doesn't understand the relationship between a father and a son. If they tell you you don't need your father, they are wrong. They might not need him, but you do. Anyway, that's it. That's it. A son needs his father. Well, this is G. Alpha Palmer. Thanking you for coming along for this ride. Thanking you for ruminating, elevating, activating with me once again to another level. And happy Easter. And on my Easter colors tonight. So let's enjoy your weekend with family, and tune into this week. I'm going to talk about the whole idea of Easter. You never heard this before. You want to come over to the Purpose Sphere. Dr. G. Alpha Palmer. Till next time. Peace.